It's honestly one of the craziest paradoxes of our modern age, isn't it? We've literally never had more tools to connect with each other, and yet loneliness is skyrocketing to epidemic levels. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the fascinating and somewhat alarming scientific mystery of why our constant digital interaction is leaving so many of us feeling completely isolated. Just picture a totally normal day for a second. You probably interact with, hundreds of people? You're constantly updated on their lives, you're reading their random thoughts, seeing their vacation photos. In every technical sense of the word, you are connected. You scroll, you like, you drop a quick comment, you reply to a story. It's this continuous loop of intake and output, a rhythm of passive consumption that quietly, almost invisibly, eats up hours and hours of our waking lives. The digital world has made it just so incredibly easy to reach out and touch someone's avatar that we do it on autopilot. But despite all this non-stop interaction, despite constantly swimming in this massive web of digital chatter, you're often left with this lingering, quiet emptiness. You know the feeling. You're never really disconnected, and yet somehow you feel entirely alone. Because as it turns out, connection and loneliness, they aren't actually opposites. Which brings us to a super fascinating question. If we are actively talking to people all day long, why does our biology just flat out reject the premise that we're actually socializing? To really understand this, we have to look under the hood at what's going on inside our neurology. Let's look at it from a scientific perspective. For practically all of human history, connection meant one specific thing: physical presence, sharing a physical space with someone. But the digital world? It gives us massive access to people, but completely zeroes out the depth. We've essentially traded the messy, physical reality of human connection for a frictionless, flat stream of words and images. And the truth is, our brains simply weren't wired for screen-based interaction. They run on ancient evolutionary hardware that absolutely demands what scientists call belonging signals. We're talking about mirror neurons firing when we catch a subtle shift in body language or the physiological calming effect of direct eye contact and vocal tone. These cues are what literally tell your nervous system, hey, you're safe, you belong here. Now, when we shift all our communication online, we completely strip away this vital emotional data. Think about the severe lack of real-time feedback. When you text someone, you miss the micro-expressions. You miss that immediate infectious burst of laughter or the split-second warmth of a genuine exchange. Without that instant real-time feedback loop, your brain is literally starved of the biological proof that a true connection is actually taking place. So because your brain isn't receiving those critical biological belonging signals, it completely rejects the interaction. It creates this powerful illusion of closeness, completely devoid of the actual substance. Deep down, your nervous system knows it's being tricked. A like is not a hug, right? And a little text bubble is definitely not a shared laugh. Okay, so let's layer on another psychological trap that this creates: endless comparison. Because when you're scrolling, you aren't just passively looking at people. Your brain is aggressively, constantly weighing your real, everyday life against heavily curated highlight reels. It's a brutal contrast. Your brain takes your everyday, unfiltered, often super messy reality and stacks it up against someone else's perfectly edited best moments. From a psychological standpoint, this creates a massive, totally artificial canyon between you and the exact people you are supposedly connecting with. And what happens? You end up feeling like an isolated observer. You feel like you're on the outside looking in, fundamentally alienated, not just from your friends, but honestly, kind of alienated from yourself. You share a digital space, sure, but emotionally, you have literally never been further apart. This brings us to the very real danger of passive consumption. Think about it. In the digital age, it's entirely possible to spend 6 solid hours taking information in, reading, watching, scrolling, without a single solitary moment of meaningful exchange or active expression. And the result of this massive intake imbalance is striking. When you have zero personal contribution and just endless consumption, you wreck your psychological equilibrium. You are left feeling totally mentally overwhelmed, just completely stuffed with data, but emotionally empty. You haven't actually engaged, you've merely consumed. There's also this subtle shift that happens in our neurology called habituation. Because digital connection is just constantly buzzing in our pockets 24/7, our brains stop treating it as special. When something is constant, it loses all its depth. Meaningful human interaction basically devolves into mere background noise. Okay, so how do we actually fix it? How do you guide yourself out of this passive, habitual fog and get back into genuine, biologically fulfilling connection? Well, the good news is you don't have to throw your phone into the ocean, but you absolutely do need to fundamentally change how you engage with it. To see what this looks like in practice, consider the story of a woman we'll call Sarah, who managed to completely rewire her digital habits. In the morning, Sarah used to wake up and immediately start mindlessly scrolling, pure passive intake. But she decided to break that cycle. By the afternoon, instead of just firing off a hollow text to a friend, she started sending voice notes. She added her actual tone and human expression back into the mix. And by the evening, she skipped the group chat entirely to actually grab a coffee with someone in person, returning fully to actual physical presence. Sarah's journey reveals 3 really straightforward steps that we can all take starting right now. First, move from passive to active. Actually reach out instead of just scrolling by. Second, shift from consumption to creation. Build a conversation instead of just watching other people's lives unfold. And third, always prioritize depth over surface-level interactions. It fundamentally boils down to choosing quality over quantity. Even tiny shifts make a huge difference. It means actively opting for one real, deep, 20-minute conversation rather than a dozen quick emoji-based replies spread out over an entire week. It means choosing full presence over the illusion of constant access. Just as importantly, you have to deliberately carve out offline moments. You need to make these sacred spaces where your attention isn't constantly fractured by a glowing screen. In these moments, you aren't performing for an audience, and you aren't comparing your messy reality to a digital filter. You are simply there, offering the full, undivided weight of your attention to someone else. So the absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer is this. Loneliness in the digital age isn't caused by a lack of contact. Not at all. It's caused by a lack of meaning within that contact. It has never been about how many people you can reach. It's about how deeply you actually feel seen, heard, and understood. We really have to internalize that the answer to our emptiness isn't adding 50 more people to our digital orbit or downloading yet another social app. The real solution is fostering significantly deeper connections that actually feed our brains the biological belonging signals they so desperately crave. I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to reflect on today. Being connected to everyone means absolutely nothing if you don't actually feel connected to anyone. If endless access without depth is just a biological illusion, who will you actively build a genuine, meaningful connection with today?